friends. Welcome into the Early Edge NFL Pick Show, Week 3 edition, brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. I've got RJ White with me here in studio. We have Will Brinson, Larry Hartstein. Guys, we're going to run through the whole Week 3 slate. But before we do that, I want to give you guys a little time to either brag about yourself, maybe brag about each other in Week 2. RJ, a little birdie told me you had a pretty solid Week 2.
Yeah, I went 4-1 in the Circa Million, so I'm 8-2 there now. But of course, as with every bettor, it's about the bad beats. So, you missed the field goal on the 60-yarder that was a penalty flag. Turns into an easy 45-yarder and take a loss there. So that gets frustrating, but otherwise it was a pretty good week.
Okay, Will, how'd you do?
Lions best bet, -5.5. Revenge game, RJ, you hear that? Revenge game against Ben Johnson. Wasn't close. Easiest cash of the week. 3-2 in the Circa Millions. On this end, the Jaguars and Liam, I kind of have come around to Liam Cohen going for it on 4th and 5 to try to win the game. But dude, let's get the cover, please.
Larry?
A solid overall week. I just hate that the best bet I gave out, Austin Eckler over 2.5 catches. He catches 2 passes in the first quarter. They're in obvious passing situation. He's on the field, and then he suffers the season-ending injury. So I got to get back on track with my best bets here.
That's how best bets work, though, right, guys? Because I've been doing pretty solid across the board, but the best bets never hit. I'm 1-1 in this show. I gave out Justin Fields on another show. He decided to complete 3 passes, so that was really fun. Larry, you mentioned a lot of the injuries, which I just want to rip through a few quick off the top here. Joe Burrow, the big one, out. It sounds like for the season. He's out 3 months with the turf toe. JJ McCarthy out multiple weeks with the ankle. Jaden Daniels to be determined with the knee. Then you have Justin Fields with a concussion. Brock Purdy unlikely to play Week 3. So already we're 2 weeks in, but injuries plastered across the board, which will obviously affect these lines, and we'll get into all that. No major injuries, though, in Miami and Buffalo. That's where we will start. Thursday night, Buffalo laying 12.5, obviously an AFC East battle here. Top of the division against the bottom of the division. Larry, let's go to you first. Where's your lean or your play on this game?
Well, the Bills had 30 points last week, and then they didn't need to do anything in the fourth quarter. This is a juggernaut offense against a defense that's given up 33 in each of the first 2 games. They just let the Patriots average 6.1 yards per play, still without Storm Duck and their corner and Melifonwu, their safety. We'll see if either can come back. But the Bills team total over 30.5 looks really good to me. They've gone over this 10 of their last 11 home games, averaging 34 points a game. They have just destroyed the Dolphins when the games have been in Buffalo, averaging 37 points in the last 8 meetings in Buffalo. So I just think the Dolphins will do enough offensively with that passing game so that the Bills have to get into the 30s.
And I'm right there with you. That's my best bet for this game. Will, it's like you're on the Bills' first half team total. I'm assuming you like the full game. Tell us why you're going with the first half.
Yeah, just trying to diversify our bonds a little bit here on the early edge. I think Buffalo comes out hot. Josh Allen playing with a clear visor shouldn't be a huge issue. I don't believe Miami can't stop anybody. The Bills dominated last week, but Allen didn't have a huge game. I think he wants to bounce back and have like an MVP caliber game in primetime at home. And as Larry pointed out, absolute domination of the Dolphins by the Bills since Josh Allen got there, since Sean McDermott got there. And quite frankly, if you look at Sean McDermott's record against divisional opponents at home, particularly the Dolphins, he's not afraid to run it up. So I lean towards the Bills here a little bit as well, but it's just a lot of points with both Matt Milano and Ed Oliver out of this game where Miami could come through the back door.
Yeah, this Miami offense, for all the talent they have, it is so depressing how bad Tua looks. We've seen glimpses of him where there was potential, but not having any protection doesn't help either. Sacked 5 times last week, highest turnover-worthy throw percentage. It doesn't look good for him. It sounds like we're all on the same page here, RJ. You're taking another angle with the same game parlay. What you got?
Yeah, I think you guys are smart to play the Buffalo team total over and not the full over because we don't know what we're going to see from that Miami offense. It did look better last week, and I think that they have a good shot of having some success against this Buffalo defense that is so beat up, like Will mentioned. You also throw in Cam Lewis injury. It just seems like left and right they're losing guys. Taron Johnson was unable to play last week. We'll see on the short week if he's able to come into this game. So I was worried to lay the points because I think a backdoor cover is in play. I was worried quite to lay the team total just in case Miami's offense sputters a bit like we saw in that Buffalo game where it was only 30-10. So I did a same game parlay, Bills -6.5 and over 40.5 points. You put those two together, it gets you to -118 at BetMGM. If you're playing a number at around that -120 level, I think that's a good look where you don't have to worry as much about the backdoor cover.
I think to me, why I'm not afraid of Miami is that I am a Patriots fan. And last week we didn't have Christian Gonzalez in that secondary. We didn't even have our defensive coordinator, Williams, because he's dealing with some health issues. And they still really couldn't do anything against a Patriots offense that's a Patriots defense and offense, really, that hasn't looked good at all. So to me, I'm not worried about Miami at all. They'll probably lose the turnover battle as well. Bills have gone 24 straight games winning the turnover battle, longest streak in the Super Bowl era. I'm high on the Bills. As I said, I'm with Larry there on the Bills team total. We're just getting started here. We've got the Sunday 1 p.m. slate coming up right after this. And we're back. We've got RJ, Larry, Will, and Claudia with you to run through that 1 p.m. slate. Starting with the Packers laying 7.5 against the Browns. He had a total of 41 and the hook. I think this is a good spot for a Packers teaser. Bring it down because I'm soft, a little bit closer to a pick 'em. 2-0 Packers. They have found themselves at the top of those Super Bowl odds against the 0-2 Browns. RJ, let's send it to you first. What's your angle here?
Yeah, Green Bay dominated a key NFC rival for the second straight week, and they did it in prime time, and they had extra time off. So they got to be feeling pretty good. I don't know that they're going to take a bad Cleveland team seriously in this game on the road. They might take their foot off the gas a bit here. I like the Browns. You can get it at +8 at MGM. I think 8.5 might be still in the market. It's a massive number to lay on the road. So I'm looking for a reason to play the dog in situations like this. And for me, it's the Cleveland defense. They only gave up 83 net yards to the Ravens in 7 first-half drives before things fell apart in the second half, as things tend to do for Cleveland. Maybe that happens again, but the Packers offense has not quite looked as explosive maybe as we might have anticipated, only putting up, I believe it was 28 or 24 in that Lions game, and then a solid game against Washington. So this feels to me like it could be a little bit lower scoring game than people think, like a 20-13 type game where Packers win relatively easily when you watch the game, but the Browns do get the cover.
So in our team rundown, RJ wrote like Browns +8, and Will wrote grossly lean Browns +8.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, this the Packer, if you just take the narrative of the first 2 weeks of the season, you have a Packers team that is the best defense in football. And I think that's a perfectly fine statement to make. You have Jordan Love, I believe, is going for the record for Packers quarterbacks for most games in a row without throwing an interception. I mean, like, how are you going to slow down the Packers when you're this like flaccid, if you will, Browns team, right? That's a Flacco joke. And we're on YouTube. It's fine. And I just think if you're looking at this game, especially after all the sort of tough public picks over the first 2 weeks of the season, where we've seen, some of these lines just not come in, people are going to feel more comfortable laying the points. However, Cleveland, the fewest total yards allowed, 383 during an 0-2 start since the 1994 Cardinals. To RJ's point, next week, the Packers have the Dallas Cowboys in the Micah Parsons revenge game on Sunday Night Football. They're going on the road. This is a really low total. I think you really have to back the Browns here and hope that Green Bay just kind of sleepwalks in this game. They have some guys banged up on the offensive line. Jaden Reed's not going to be here. Maybe they struggle on offense a little bit. And worst case scenario, Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders comes through the back door in the fourth quarter. When, by the way, if the Packers have a 10-point lead, they are absolutely going to be resting everybody on defense, including Micah Parsons, who I don't think they'll ramp up until next week.
So it sounds like this is a play on the number, right? We're saying this is a massive number to be laying. And we do have to look at the Browns defense. Browns offense, Joe Flacco, I'm probably going to go over on his pass attempts every single week because he constantly cashes it. He's throwing it at the third highest rate, the most dropbacks, but it's not getting them anywhere. The third worst EPA per dropback. With that said, the defense is doing their job. PFF right now has them ranked as the best run stopping defense and the best pass rush. Also have the highest pressure rate. So they're getting pressure on the opposing quarterback. And like you said, if they sit their starters, we could backdoor cover here. With all of that said, Larry, you lean the other way.
I don't dispute anything I've heard and the strength of those two units that you mentioned, Claudia, but you left out the secondary, which doesn't have Martin Emerson Jr. lost for the season. And we saw Lamar Jackson throw 4 touchdown passes, all on throws downfield where the corners don't get their heads turned around. Jordan Love likes to throw the ball downfield. That's the way that he wants to attack. And I agree with everything. It's a terrible spot. But when I think about Micah Parsons and Rashawn Gary, and the rest of that Packers pass rush against a statue like Joe Flacco, I see mistakes, I see turnovers, and I see a Green Bay cover.
And speaking of injuries, Packers possibly without, again, their 2 starting offensive linemen, Zach Tom and Aaron Banks, are still questionable on the injury report. And they ruled them out last week, and I got all excited and bet against them, and I was stupid to do that. So maybe don't read too much if it's not a left tackle into the offensive line injuries when it comes to the Packers. Up next, Colts laying 3.5 against the Titans at the Titans. 43 in the hook is the total. AFC South battle, Colts 2-0, Titans 0-2. Colts shockingly look really good with Daniel Jones. What is happening here, Larry?
Well, number 3 in EPA, number 3 in success rate. Shane Steichen obviously made the right move. What they did to an elite Denver defense was pretty impressive, and you have to respect that. And, this is another spot where you'd love to back the 0-2 team getting the points, but I would need a lot more to back Tennessee because of the way they're attacking offensively. They're running the ball on 1st and 2nd down, trying to take pressure off Cam Ward, and it's doing the exact opposite. He has faced 3rd and 7 or longer on 21 of his 31 third downs. And that's why he's also been sacked 11 times. So it's not going well when you're putting that much pressure. They need to throw the ball on 1st down, but Callahan seems committed to this, strange approach of setting up 3rd and long and running Tony Pollard into the line. So I'm going to back the Colts to stay hot.
And RJ, I say they're doing good. I don't know another word to use that. I know they needed a walk-off field goal to win that game. But in general, Daniel Jones is facing one of the highest pressure rates. He was blitzed on a career high percentage last week, and they only sacked him once. He has a completion percentage right outside the top 5. They are the 2nd team in the Super Bowl era to have 0 punts and 0 turnovers in back-to-back games. What is your feel on this Colts-Titans game, RJ?
Well, everything's going right, and everybody wants to bet the Colts, and that's why the line we're seeing go up and up and up. It's 4.5 at some spots. It might get even higher, and at that point, you're begging me to take the Titans at that spot. This line was 2 on the look ahead. Should the Colts be moving this much? I would argue that it was wrong to move them last week against Denver. They really needed that fortunate penalty to be able to cover the -1.5. I think most people bet it at. So the +1.5 for them. So it's interesting. I mean, Tennessee, you talk about how badly they've looked. They led in the 3rd quarter of both games against 2 teams that everybody has a lot of expectations for, potentially dark horse Super Bowl teams. And Ward, obviously new NFL player, getting into rhythm, having to play 2 of the tougher defenses in the league. I think it's interesting that the Colts defense, as well as Daniel Jones played, they struggled against Denver's offense, who looked really bad in week 1. Pass rush, I don't think is going to challenge the Tennessee offensive line as much as they've seen the first 2 weeks. So both these teams played tight games against Denver. If you want to use common opponents to say, what should this line be? You can look at both games against Denver. I don't think there's as big as a gap between these teams, provided Tennessee isn't too banged up on the offensive line. I'm probably going to play the Titans here.
It's with all of that said, the amount of times Cam Ward has been hit, the amount of times he has been sacked, the highest in the league, 28 penalties for this team overall, just super sloppy in general. And they're averaging 3.2 yards per play. Their opponent in this matchup is double that, more than double that. So I just don't see enough offense for them. But Will, it sounds like you agree with RJ.
Yeah, I think it's a clear Titan spot. I mean, RJ mentioned it. The market movement here from 2 or -1.5 or plus, like the Colts -1.5 to the Colts -4.5. And obviously past a pretty key number. And I think if you look at Tennessee, when we get a few weeks out from now, I still think we're going to come back and say you have the Broncos and the Rams are both top 5 defenses. And I don't think that the Colts are that. The Colts also, by the way, the first team since the 1996 Panthers to start the season 2-0 while kicking 9+ field goals. That is, I mean, they're settling here. And when you settle against a team with a young rookie quarterback who had what an incredible first touchdown pass. I mean, this guy could get electric, Cam Ward. He can make some mistakes on the field, but he can do some really good things. And I think finally against a non-elite defense, we might see Tennessee come alive. I like the Titans plus 3.5 here and think that they are absolutely live to win. This is a week where you're going to have to pinch your nose and take some stinky dogs, in my opinion, and the Titans are one of them, but I don't mind it.
Or you could just stay away from that game, but we're running through the whole slate. So we got to give you our leans and our plays. And of course, we are betting the numbers. You're getting past that key number of 3. All right, Bengals, Vikings. Speaking of plugging your nose, we have 2 backup quarterbacks here. Joe Burrow out, as I said, for 3 months with that turf toe. Jake Browning in, JJ McCarthy out. Carson Wentz in. And RJ and I were chatting about this game before the show started. And I said, how do you feel about Carson Wentz? And you said, what, RJ?
I said I feel a lot better about him in Kevin O'Connell's offense. You know, Carson Wentz is playing for his 6th team. He's going to make a start for his 6th team in 6 seasons. I don't think anybody's ever done that. I think CBS research team, unearthed that earlier once we found out this was going to happen. And look, Carson Wentz is a veteran quarterback. He actually did have success during his Indy tenure. His numbers look pretty good. So if you have shown that you can still play in this league and put up some production, I have to have confidence you're going to be able to do that with Kevin O'Connell. Now, we've seen Jake Browning play well as well in relief of Burrow. So deciding factor here for me is just going to be the home field advantage for Minnesota. We know it's a very strong home field advantage for them, the way that crowd gets in that stadium, as well as their defense. You know, I have no questions about the Minnesota defense, whereas I certainly still do about Cincinnati's defense. I'd make this line Vikings -4. I'm hoping to be able to play him at -2.5 if the market can talk itself into backing the Bengals here at +3. So we'll see if we can get the 2.5 before I lay it, but I'm probably going to be on the Vikings.
And it looks like I am the only one on the Bengals. And I will say, outside of injuries, I don't have much to say, but Aaron Jones is out. So obviously that hurts the backfield for the Vikings. Left tackle Christian Darrisaw is questionable. Ryan Kelly at center is questionable. The secondary, Harrison Smith, safety is questionable. Andrew Van Ginkel is questionable. So I'm just basing this off of injury report if we're going with 2 backup quarterbacks, neither of who I really have faith in. But like you said, Jake Browning did just throw 3 picks, but also 3 touchdowns in that last game. I think they'll be able to keep it close enough. I obviously like a 3.5, much more than a 2.5. I am the only one on the Bengals. The rest of you are on the other side. So Larry, tell me why.
Well, Jake Browning, I think, does have some good potential the rest of the season. We've seen him operate well in this offense, but not in this environment against Brian Flores. That, to me, is going to lead to more mistakes. And if you just listen to Kevin O'Connell, well, I don't know, was it relief? Was it happiness that he gets Carson Wentz instead of JJ McCarthy? He sounded so positive. The ball didn't hit the ground when he took the first team reps last week. Remember, J.J. McCarthy missed a day for the birth of his child, and Carson Wentz took the first team reps, and Kevin O'Connell was raving about that practice. He seems juiced to have this guy, this veteran, running the offense, and I think this Vikings team will bounce back and cover, and I'm with RJ. If I can get less than a field goal, I'll be on it.
And I will note, because I'm looking at the rundown, everybody said lean. So it's a lean on the Vikings for Larry, RJ, and you will.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is not one where I think you want to be hard and fast on the Vikings with Carson Wentz. But, to that point, we've seen Josh Dobbs come in, get signed or traded to the team, and then 3 days later starts and looks pretty sharp. Kevin O'Connell is the quarterback whisperer. I've referenced the 90s twice. We're talking about 2-0 teams. My childhood, let me reference Pete Prisco's childhood, because the Bengals are the first team to start 2-0 without 50 rushing yards in either game since the 1940s, right? I mean, that is insane. This is a team that hasn't been able to run the ball, has mostly been just feeding Jamar Chase. And if you watch that game against the Jaguars last week, they needed an insane amount of luck to be in that game. A bunch of interceptions from Trevor Lawrence that really probably weren't his fault, or just kind of toss up spots. And I think, to Larry's point, the blitzing defense of this Vikings is going to get after Jake Browning. And if Christian Darrisaw does come back for this game, I think we could see a lot of Jordan Mason in a big blow up spot for him, where the Vikings just sort of grind on the Bengals and force him to throw a bunch. I kind of like Minnesota maybe more now that I'm talking about it.
I was going to say, you're kind of talking me into it too. I'm trying to think of who's the third string for the Bengals, because how bad is this offensive line? You have to think, I understand they had to pay their receivers, but this was a glaring issue that they needed to fix, and they did not. And I know Joe Burrow has a say in it, so I don't know why he didn't push for that a little bit more. So I'm probably going to stay away from that game, because you guys did sort of talk me into the other side, with Brian Flores being a big part of that. All right, Steelers, Patriots. Steelers, The road favorite, laying 1.5 at New England. 44 in the hook is the total. My original lean, guys, was on the under here because neither offense is consistent. I think the quarterbacks are both going to see pressure up front, but there are a lot of, again, defensive injuries. It's important, but something to keep in mind. Steelers have 4 defensive players on the IR, and Patriots still lists Christian Gonzalez as questionable, which is important for that secondary. Larry, I'll send it to you first. It looks like you do like my Patriots.
Well, Christian Gonzalez tweeted out, new week, new blessings, which a lot of people take to mean that he's going to come back, which would be huge. Well, we know Alex Highsmith is not coming back. That guy leads the NFL in pressure rate at 32%, and TJ Watt has not been the same. No sacks last 6 games, the pressure rate under 10%, and Joey Porter doesn't look like he's going to go. They could be missing 5 or 6 defensive starters, so I've got to lean towards the Patriots at home.
Well, it looks like we're all on Patriots.
Yeah, I'll take the pay. I don't really love this game. I mean, I do think it's worth noting the Steelers are a couple. I mean, like one play away from being 0-2 in the talk of the town in terms of, what happened? The Aaron Rodgers signing, like another disaster with Aaron Rodgers. I think it's, the total is a little surprisingly a little high. Maybe that speaks to the fact that, Pittsburgh's defense not as good as we think, and some surprising just mistakes from the Steelers. So that Caleb Johnson, the kickoff return, I'll take the Patriots, but I don't love it in this spot. Just think getting the 1.5 points at home, it'll be a close game. And
it sounds like you don't really love it either because you're leaning this way, RJ.
Yeah, I actually like it more and more. I think I'm actually going to put it in my top 5 for the contest. If we do get 1.5, we'll have to see what number we get out. And the reason is this: let's throw out the injuries for a minute, which I think clearly favored New England with how beat up Pittsburgh is. 2 weeks ago, the market was rating the Patriots as the slightly better team. Both these teams had 8.5 win totals. Patriots were slightly leaning toward the over. The Steelers were slightly leaning to the under. We've seen what Will described as kind of an uneven Steelers performance to get where they are now. And all of a sudden, they're 1.5 point favorites in New England. You would have never thought that would be the case during any of Bill Belichick's term. And a lot of the excitement that the Patriots had coming into the season seems to have gone away. I don't get it. I think with that ugly home loss to Seattle and the number of defensive injuries, I would put the Patriots as favored in this game. So plus 1.5, I love. If it gets any higher than that, it's definitely going to be in my top 5.
And look at that game against Miami. It was disgusting. They pulled out the win, but we're talking double-digit penalties, really, really stupid penalties as well. They took too many sacks, Drake May under a bunch of pressure. So if they can limit some of those mistakes, use Travion Henderson. That guy's pretty good, and he's barely getting the ball. A lot of changes they can make. I will say this is a good teaser leg. It doesn't sound like any of us outside of RJ really love this. Get the Patriots up past that key number of 3 and 7. So good teaser leg if you want to go that way. All right, we've got the other 1 p.m. games coming up. But first, this. And now we're back. All right. Rams, Eagles laying 3.5 at home. Both teams coming in 2-0. Eagles taking down the Chiefs in that Super Bowl rematch, and the Rams taking down the Titans. This will be a battle in the trenches. Will, which direction are you taking?
Oh, please, you give me the Rams plus 3.5. Well, everybody here knows where I'm going with this one. Like the Eagles and the Rams played twice last year, once in the regular season. Absolutely dominant performance from Philadelphia. Saquon Barkley ran all over the Rams. Met again in the playoffs. I think Eagles won by 6, but a much closer game. The Rams had a chance at the end to win it. This Rams team to me is top 5 in the NFL right now. Now the Eagles are probably there too, but I think it's like Bills, Ravens, Packers, Eagles, and then Rams. And so if you're giving me the 3.5 with Sean McVay, who I think is, Nick Sirianni is a very good coach, but I think Sean McVay is better. Matthew Stafford is playing his ass off right now. He looks fantastic back there. He's dealing. Devontae Adams set to have a big game in this spot. I think he can get the Eagles a little bit downfield. As long as the Rams offensive line injuries aren't there, I think they keep it within this field goal. By the way, Eagles don't have a passing touchdown this year. It's 2025. They're two, but I think I've got another. They're 2-0. Shout out to our research team. The first team to start 2-0 without a passing touchdown since the 2010 Steelers, and the fewest 10-yard plays by a 2-0 team since at least 2000. So Eagles not as explosive quite yet, and I don't think they get there against this Rams defense.
not explosive at all. They're just passing by in these games. When I was looking at these stats, I'm like, I mean, Jalen Hurts is protecting the ball, but like you said, nothing's explosive. He's not taking sacks. Saquon Barkley doing his thing, facing twice as many stacked boxes, but still they have the fourth fewest total yards. A.J. Brown has 35 yards through 2 games. So that could be twofold, right? The offense is just not there, or we just haven't seen how good they are yet. RJ, it looks like you also lean the Rams 3.5.
Yeah, it's interesting. You look at what the Eagles have done so far. They're 2-0. They just went into Kansas City and beat the Chiefs. Everybody should be happy about this team, right? Well, you look at what the most searched term is for the Eagles, and it's the offensive coordinator's name, Kevin Patullo, who I guarantee you nobody knows outside of Philadelphia. There's no reason anybody's searching his name except for the people in Philadelphia, because they're angry. They're 2-0, and they're like, what is up with this offense? The Rams defense has given up 1 touchdown and just over 500 yards in their 2 games combined. Offense got on track versus what we think is an underrated Titans defense. With that Eagles offense being hit or miss early, even though the ratings tell me I should be on the Eagles, and if you put it at 3, I might have to lean Eagles. At 3.5, I think the Rams have to be the play.
Yeah, I mean, the defense has allowed 28 total points overall, outside of what the Eagles did last season and the names on the roster. Dallas Goedert, by the way, questionable, which hurts that offense even more. I think this is a huge edge to the Rams. Larry, you're staying away from the sides. You're going with the total play.
Yeah, the Eagles are running about 60% of the time, which is an unheard of number in today's NFL. They're playing slow. It's like they don't want, Jalen Hurts to take a lot of sacks right now, and it's working. And they're 2-0. They have one of the best running backs in the league. They have a great offensive line. They have a very good defense and a great defensive coordinator. So why not play that way until you have to open things up? So I think with a very good Rams defense on the other side and the way the Eagles are playing, and I also think Sean McVay can lean into that conservative type of a game plan. We're going to get a close game, a tight game that stays under the total.
All right, now we've got the Jets and the Bucs, and it looks like we're split here. 2 of us on the Jet side, 2 of us on the Bucs side. Obviously, 0-2 Jets visiting the 2-0 Bucs. Jets could not get anything going against the Bills in week 2. I was on Justin Fields over passing, thinking, this is going to be great. Game script and all. Completed 3 passes for 27 yards. That's awesome. Then Tyrod Taylor comes in, manages just 56 yards. And then guess what? They couldn't run the ball either. Just 49 rush yards for them. Bills, meanwhile, just bulldozing through everybody. Great resume. Whatever. They had the ball for over 38 minutes. I want to talk about the Bills, but we have to talk about the Jets and the Bucs right now. Will, you're taking the 7 with the Jets despite all of that.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Jets have not been – the Jets had that weird – I think the week 1 game between the Jets and the Steelers are going to come out as one of the biggest aberrations of the season when we go back and look at it. Maybe an apparition, quite frankly. This is, RJ, I'm aware, the first time that Todd Bowles will see the Jets. Nevertheless, I don't think this is a Bucs team that is necessarily going to come in here and run it up against the Jets. I think Tyrod Taylor plays better for New York in this matchup because he's a better passer. He's been pretty efficient in just 33 pass attempts, but has completed a good number, hasn't thrown an interception, doesn't take a ton of sacks. You can't really run against the Buccaneers, although Kalijah Kancey being out, that maybe affect that quite a bit. Baker Mayfield, incredible in the 4th quarter, leading this team to 2 wins. But this is, if you're giving me 7, I don't need you to go win New York. Just hang around enough and let Baker get through the late touchdown pass to win the game. I think 7 is asking too much of the Buccaneers here in this spot.
RJ actually agrees with you. RJ.
Yeah, mark it down. Week 3, 2025. Will Brinson is finally fading a homecoming coaching narrative. First time in history for everything. Look, the Bucs are now 2-0 with a bunch of injuries, and I kind of treat this a little bit like that Packers game we mentioned earlier. Could take their foot off the gas against an opponent they're supposed to handle that looked pretty terrible last week. So Tyrod Taylor now starting. I think him playing may benefit the Jets in relying more on the pass instead of going run heavy versus this tough Bucs front that we know is typically pretty tough to run against. With the injury report, how it is for Tampa Bay, look a headline of 5, I think, was a better number here. I don't think 7 is the correct number. Tampa is not that far away from being 0-2 when you think about how those games went. So I think it's going to be a week of playing ugly dogs. It seems like Brinson and I are pretty aligned on that. And +7 with the Jets, you can't get any uglier than that, but I'm probably going to be on it.
Yeah, you mentioned the Tampa injury report. Left tackle Tristan Wirfs, no Chris Godwin. That was his case last week. But now they're also without defensive tackle Kalijah Kancey and right tackle Luke Goedeke. And Baker has faced the second highest pressure rate. A lot of things that don't work well together, especially with those injuries. All that said, Larry, you're on the Bucs team total over. Tell us why.
Yeah, I love Aaron Glenn, and how can you not love Aaron Glenn and just, how intense he is and what he brings. But his first hire was Steve Wilks, and that was a mistake, and it is proven to be a mistake. 64 points allowed in the first 2 games for a Jets team that has a ton of talent on defense. The Steelers put up 34. The Bills put up 30 in 3 quarters and could have put up more. Brandon Stevens was a mistake. You signed this corner to replace DJ Reed. He gets burned for 2 touchdowns in week 1. Last week, he gives up James Cook's 44-yard touchdown run. They may have to bench him, but otherwise, they still should not be this bad on defense. And I think the Bucs coming home first, this is their first home game, are going to put up a nice number, which is what everyone's been doing against the Jets. We only need 26.
I would say, too, if you like the Bucs and you think maybe the injury report looks a little bit better by kickoff, again, it's another teaser spot for you. Okay, Raiders, Commanders, Raiders catching 3.5. That's a lean for me, mainly just because Jaden Daniels is questionable for this one with the knee sprain. But even if he does play, guys, he's not going to be 100%, and his mobility is why this offense works. Larry, I'm going to throw it back to you. Is that a big reason why you're leaning Raiders, or is it something else?
Well, this is the ultimate horrific scheduling spot when you play a Monday night game and then have to travel against a team that was playing last Thursday night. But that is built into the line already, and the Commanders suffered 2 more significant injuries besides Jaden Daniels. Talking about Austin Eckler out and Dietrich Wise on the defensive line. They're just signed Preston Smith at age 32 to see what he can do there. But I just think Geno Smith is going to bounce back. He played so well in week 1 through 362 yards on the road against the Patriots. And with Marcus Mariota, there is absolutely no way I could lay 3.5.
All right. And RJ, you're on the Raiders under team total.
Yeah, you talk about, Geno Smith playing well. They still didn't score a ton of points in that Patriots game. So that terrible spot where you play late Monday night, have to travel across country, I think it's going to be a tough spot for them to score points here. Spread entirely depends on whether Jaden Daniel plays. If he plays, it's going up. It might even be 6. If he doesn't play, it should probably be near pick'em. That makes it hard for me to tell you which side of the spread to play until we have a little bit more clarity. I would lean to him not playing and take the 3.5 like Larry is doing. But I don't want to play that at all. You don't want to think about it at all, frankly, at this point on a Wednesday. So I'm going to lean on the Raiders going under the team total. Tempted to take them under first half total at 9.5 because of that early start time and because of that scheduling quirk there. But I'm just going to stick with the full game. 20.5 seems like a little bit too high of a number for me.
And the Raiders are capable of those big chunk plays, but again, it can take 3 picks from Geno, which we do see time and time again to totally wash those out. All right, Will, you are on the Commanders laying the 3.5, but in parentheses, if Daniel practices.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say this. I think that like RJ just said, if you're getting Jaden Daniels, that spread's going to go up. You're getting good value at 3.5. If you're getting Marcus Mariota, that spread's going to come down. So all of a sudden, you don't want to be betting it. Now, this all happened, right before we came on. Jaden Daniels, Marcus Mariota is going to speak to the media on Thursday. Jaden Daniels is not going to practice until Friday. This is a similar setup to last year when Jaden Daniels, I believe, did not play, right? So I would expect that this is trending towards Marcus Mariota playing. So I'm not going to lay the 3.5 with the commies right now just because it looks like it is going to be Mariota. I think if you have any interest in this game, the Raiders are the play to make at 3.5 because you are more than likely going to get Marcus Mariota. But again, Washington gets to 10 days. You get 4 days or 5 days for Las Vegas off the really late night Monday Night Football game. It's just traveling west to east. It's a really tough spot. So probably a total stay away from me. But I think if you're going to back anything like right now, it would probably have to be the Raiders catching the 3.5 only because it looks like Jay Daniels isn't going to play.
Okay, so maybe it's just a wait and see in general.
That's called a filibuster with no real answer. That's what that is.
Well, quarterback's a pretty important position specifically for this team and how they play. We'll move on. Falcons laying 5.5 at the Panthers. 43 in the hook is the total. RJ, let's go to you first. It looks like you're going with a side here.
Yeah, I like the Panthers at 6 at some places. I think it might even be 6 at BetMGM here. Look ahead was 2.5. This is an aggressive movement. Even with Carolina's offensive line injuries, you're typically not moving a line 3.5 points because a couple of guys get lost in the offensive line. Carolina's run defense played well against Arizona. Things started to click late for Bryce Young. Maybe that was the injuries there with the opponent they were facing. But Atlanta's offense didn't exactly light up Minnesota's defense. And we know they have a very tough defense. Only one touchdown in that game. I think there's value fading such a big move up to 6. So I'm going to be on the Panthers plus 6. Another ugly dog, this one at home. Panthers can't play as poorly over the rest of the season as they have in their first 2 weeks.
Okay, Will, you have a Panthers play, but it's an under.
Yeah, wow, what a stat, by the way, on the screen. Most outright wins as a dog of 3+ points since 2023. Bryce Young with 5. That's really surprising. I think this is I'm on the Panthers team total under 19.5. They stormed through the back door in week 2, nearly stormed through the back door in week 1. Bryce Young threw 33 passes in the fourth quarter, I think, against the Cardinals, which is just outrageous. 55 passing attempts. This Carolina offense, pretty soon Dave Canales is going to get on the hot seat, but I don't think they're going to be able to move the ball a ton against Atlanta. And I also think Atlanta is going to be fairly conservative here in terms of their game plan. I don't think they come down to Charlotte and try to wing it all around with Michael Penix. I think it's a Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier game where they feed that rush offense and maybe end up settling for some field goals. Carolina doesn't do much because they're willing to play this sort of cat and mouse low scoring game. And I don't think Carolina is as live to come through the back door with those offensive line injuries. This is way too many points to lay with the Falcons personally. Would lean Panthers. But again, as RJ said, this is a week where if you're willing to back some stinky dogs, just pinch your nose and take them, you can get some good value on these teams.
The graphic that we showed of Bryce Young impressive. Also impressive is how he was able to spread out that ball last week. They dominated time possession, by the way, against the Cardinals. They won the yardage battle, and he spread out the ball. 7 different receivers had double-digit yards. With all of that said, Larry, you're on the other side. You're leading Falcons.
Well, the Falcons have given up the fewest yards in the league, and we saw the pass rush. We saw how they invested in it, and it really paid off against the Vikings when Walker gets a sack, Pierce gets a sack, Floyd gets a sack, and now the Panthers could be down 2 starting offensive linemen. To me, that spells trouble. And Will, I think I missed the part where Carolina nearly stormed through the back door in week 1. I grant you they did wake up finally when Arizona lost its top 5 cornerbacks. They were playing with no cornerbacks in that fourth quarter. So I'm not going to lay 6, obviously, on the road in the division. But I definitely think the Falcons are an underrated team. They should be 2-0. They're showing that they might be the best team in that division. It was a very fluky loss in week 1.
Should point out when I say storm through the back door, what I mean is like fall drunkenly and like haphazardly through the back door is really more like what they're doing than storming through the back door.
All right, we got one more before we go to that 4 p.m. slate after the break. Texans, Jags. RJ, we'll go to you first. Jags laying 1.5 total at 44 in the hook.
Yeah, we're seeing 1 in some spots. It's too short for me. I think the Jaguars should be favored by a little bit more, but I don't know if I want to fade a desperate 0-2 Texans team in a divisional game. Houston's offense has not been very impressive, just 28 points. That's last in the NFL. Jaguars' top 2 receivers have been brutal. Now they have to face an elite cornerback pairing after 2 easy defensive matchups in their first 2 games. I like the under 44.5. I don't think there's going to be a ton of points in this game. It's going to be one of those classic AFC South kind of sluggish. Everybody changes the channel after the first 20 minutes and looks for something else to watch type of game. So I think we're going to get a lower scoring game here with how these offenses are playing.
Larry, you have a lean on the Texans?
Yeah, it's a Christian Kirk revenge game. And he is going
There's a storyline.
Yeah, he's going to play. That can only help this Texans offense that has been bad in the first 2 weeks. But, if you look at teams that start 0-2 straight up and against the spread in week 3, like the Texans, and they're playing a team that is not, that's 1-1 or 2-0, they've covered 67% of the time over the last 10 years. So I think it's got to be Texans or pass here. Really concerned with the Jags and that passing offense. Brian Thomas Jr., not really running out routes, dropping the ball. It just looks bad. And like RJ said, this is an elite Texans pass defense. They've got some elite corners. So I don't think this is the week that BTJ breaks out.
Yeah, outside of the offensive line for the Jags, they just look a little bit sloppy, but the protection looks great. All of that said, although they are 12-2 over the last 14 against the Jags, you're going with the Jags, Will.
Yeah, look, Houston's pass defense, those corners are fantastic. I think generally Houston has a very good defense, but I was a little concerned with just the way the Buccaneers ran the ball in the second half against them. Rachaad White looked like prime Jerome Bettis or something, just grinding through the middle on them. And if it weren't for an injury, he might have ripped off a couple more long runs. I like the Jaguars. I think they're a little underrated at 1-1 just because they should have beaten Cincinnati. There's really no excuse for losing that game. And think the defense has kind of stepped up a little bit this season. Think they can move the ball on the ground, but this is probably more of a lean than anything. I think it'll be, as RJ points out, a close, low-scoring game. I would lean towards the Jaguars.
And because I'm Miss Teaser, I'm going with the Texans. Nice little Wong spot there. All right, we've got the rest of the Sunday slate after this. We're back with an AFC West showdown. Broncos, Chargers laying 2.5 at home. 46 in the hook is the total here. Let's go to you first, Will. You're on an under for the full game.
Yeah, this is Broncos defense that, despite what we saw against maybe the Colts, I think this is still an elite defense for Denver. And it's a Chargers team that would love to run the ball a ton. The pass rate's been higher this year under Greg Roman than I think we would have expected. But against maybe an elite pass defense, coming off a late Monday night win, hot start for the Chargers. If it's 3, I'm probably taking it with the Broncos. But I think this Chargers team is rightfully favored to win the division. I just think we don't see a huge shootout here. Lots of running the football, lots of sort of drives that end in field goals, and ultimately maybe the Chargers win a close one.
Well, I mean, the Chargers do have division wins already over the Chiefs and the Raiders. This is just completing that little triangle if they get the win here. Larry, the rest of us are all on the Chargers. Tell us why you are.
I'm going to question whether the Broncos defense is as elite as we thought, especially with Patrick Surtain dealing with an ankle injury. He allowed 7 of 9 passes to be caught in his coverage. That's a number you never see. You never see him targeted that much. So maybe he's not 100%. And the Chargers, they lead the NFL in net success rate plus 11% on a down-to-down basis. They've been the best team so far, and they've held opponents to the lowest passer rating in the league. That's Patrick Mahomes and Geno Smith to a 61.9 passer rating. So this is a team that looks like a legit Super Bowl contender so far. If it's less than 3, I'd be all over the Chargers, and I'll still lean that way at -3.
And RJ, I know it's a lean for you as well. I just want to touch on Bo Nix quickly. The worst PFF passing grade and overall offensive grade through 2 weeks, despite playing a bit better last week. RJ, tell us why it's a lean for you on the Chargers.
Yeah, now Bo Nix has to play the Jesse Minter defense that's performed very well. And I think a lot of people are very high on him moving forward. Maybe a potential head coach down the line. The Khalil Mack injury hurts, but I expect that Minter is going to figure out a way to frustrate Bo Nix like we've seen him at times this season and sometimes last season. The Chargers look like a Super Bowl contender to me as well. Will talked about his top 5 teams. He has the Rams there. I have the Chargers in that 5th slot for me. So while Denver's supposedly elite defense just got carved up by Daniel Jones, so something I think is wrong with the Denver defense. The year before last, I believe they were like 27th in scoring, and then they were 3rd last year. And so the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, as we're finding out. And in that case, I think you got to play the Chargers at the 2.5. I grabbed it at 2.5. At 3, I'm still leaning that way because I think it should be on the other side of 3, probably a 3.5, maybe even a 4 game. But I don't think it's going to get there. So play the 2.5 if you can. And if it's 3, it's probably just to stay away.
And if all the stats and the wisdom didn't convince you, we just showed that graphic there. Trends are also a thing in the Chargers' favor here. The Broncos 0-6 straight up, 1-5 ATS against the Harbaugh brothers over the last 10 years. There it is. All right, Saints Seahawks. Saints catching 7.5 on the road. 41.5 is the total here. Saints without a win despite facing Mac Jones and the Niners squad, a banged-up Niners squad in week 2. Spencer Rattler on the other side is 0-8 as a starter. Let's go with you first. Will, tell us why you like the points with the Saints.
By the way, I should point out too, if you're with me and RJ believing that the Rams and the Chargers are, and I think the Chargers are a top 10 team for sure, you could still get Rams over Chargers or Chargers over Rams at 180 to 1, I believe, as a Super Bowl exacta. Okay. Sexy little LA Super Bowl. Not so sexy. Taking the Saints and the points, another stinky dog. They are plus 7.5 here. The Seahawks, if you look at the Survivor projections this week, it's going to be the Bills and the Seahawks at like 25% plus a piece. Seahawks defense profiling like it might be a top 5, top 10 unit. Mike McDonald getting the most out of them. Scary backing the Saints here, but I think it's just too many points for a Saints team that has, despite the total lack of personnel and especially at the quarterback position, has been pretty frisky the first 2 weeks of the season. And I think at least has a shot to come through the back door or to keep this close in a really low scoring game. We don't see many points in this spot. I don't think Seattle runs away with it. I think New Orleans just kind of hangs around and finds a way to cover that 7.5. Again, another really stinky dog getting a lot of points, but you look at the total, 41.5. 7.5 is a lot when your total is 41.5.
Larry, anything to add there?
I don't know how, but Spencer Rattler is a much better quarterback this year. It's probably due to Kellen Moore. He has not committed a turnover yet. He threw for 3 touchdowns. He's using his legs. The offense has not been bad at all. They've been in the red zone 7 times, and they really could have won either game if not for some bad drops, some missed chip shot field goals. So this team has actually overachieved, even though they're 0-2. And I'm worried that it's his first start on the road. I'm worried the mistakes are going to come, but I have to go with the guys and grab the points. I don't think Sam Darnold and that Seahawks offense should be laying such a big number, even to the Saints.
Well, the defense, too, for the Seahawks, top 5 in pressure rate, top 5 in takeaways. I know they faced a tough defense last week. It's a lean on the Seahawks. I hate the 7.5 number. I'm never really going to lay 7.5, but possibly an angle on Seahawks if I can find it. I'm the only one, though, RJ, because you're also on the Saints.
Yeah, I think you guys are exactly right. The Saints look better than I expected. I think a lot of people expected, but they're not getting credit for it on this number. This is a preseason number, laying 7.5 with the Seahawks, against the Saints team that was on the verge of tying the Arizona game at the end. They had the ball down there. They don't get the touchdown, and they don't cover. And as a result, I think it's in people's minds that the Saints are just as bad as everyone expected. When Spencer Rattler came out, and look what he did against that Robert Saleh defense, that was very much improved against the Seahawks in week 1 and looked very good. And they were able to carve them up a bit. So the Seahawks win got weird with that kickoff muff touchdown that Brinson mentioned earlier. Offense is still largely unproven to me after that week 1 dud and then facing a decimated Steelers defense that you listed all the players they were missing and on IR. I don't know that we know enough about the Seahawks that they should be laying 7.5 against anyone, and certainly not a team that's exceeding expectations.
All right, we'll move on to the Cowboys and the Bears. We're seeing this line flip around a bit, but I believe we have on our graphic the Bears 1.5, of course, shop around down to 1 now. Winless Bears, by the way, the home favorite here. Dallas coming off the OT win against the Giants, which wasn't pretty, but a win nonetheless. And like I said, we are seeing this flip. RJ, are you surprised by that?
No, I have the Bears as favored in this game, just because the Cowboys defense looked pretty bad. Yeah, I survived with them in Survivor. Very glad I don't have to think about them anymore for the rest of the year, because there's not going to be any team that I'd be confident playing with the way that defense was playing. The last over under a 50+ in Chicago was back in 2018 in a game against the Rams, and that game ended 15-6. So I don't know. This seems like a situation where you want to look to the under here, but these defenses each gave up 500 yards last week. So how are you going to trust them to get any stops in this game? I couldn't find anything to play in this game except for the early release of Dak Prescott's over 1.5 touchdowns was -130 at BetMGM. So I put it in as a pick here. It's already up to -155. So if you don't want to play it at that number, I can understand. I think you also look to a George Pickens touchdown. Really seems like he's keying in on him down near the red zone. And if this Bears secondary, being as beat up as it is with Jalen Johnson now out for the season, is going to give up those big plays, you got to think that Pickens is going to catch a touchdown in this game.
Well, speaking of touchdowns, let's talk totals. Larry, you liking over there?
Yeah, when Jalen Johnson went out, Jared Goff did not throw an incompletion after that point. The Bears secondary is the worst in football right now, especially if there's no Kyler Gordon either. They're giving up a 137 passer rating. Miami is the next, and that's like 126. I mean, they cannot stop the pass at all. So Dak is going to go off. But I think on the other side, Deron Bland, unlikely to play. That's the Cowboys' best corner. And I thought Caleb Williams wasn't terrible in that game against Detroit. Threw for 2 touchdowns, got the offense going. They had a lot of mistakes. But to me, this one does fly over, even though RJ mentioned that worrisome history.
Yeah, the Cowboys defense does worry me, but I do think that Dak may be able to pick apart this defense. That's the worst in the NFL. Short sample size right now. Dak, people, second best passer rating of all quarterbacks. Let's talk about the quarterback on the other side. Will, you have a prop on Caleb Williams?
Yeah, I mean, this Caleb Williams number, given what we saw from Russell Wilson, his 223, I mean, Russell Wilson threw for 433.
He picked him apart. Yeah.
Russell Wilson. Roma Dunze, by the way, looks awesome in year 2. He's getting the actual usage that he needed to get. DJ Moore hasn't had that explosion game, and maybe it could be coming this week. Colston Loveland's been, under the radar. I just think this is a spot where the Bears are desperate. Ben Johnson hasn't dialed up a bunch of the stuff we saw him use in Detroit. I think he's got to kind of empty the kitchen sink against a terrible Cowboys defense. And Caleb Williams at this number should go over this total, especially if Dak plays well. And I think he will against a bad Chicago defense. And the Bears are sort of dragged into this spot where they have to throw the ball around a bunch. I think I think it's tough to pick a side here just because it's going to come down late in the game and be variant on who can actually get a stop. And the answer may be no one. But I do think we see a lot of passing from both teams in this spot. Love Caleb Williams over.
All right, lots of overs in that game in different markets. Let's move on to the Cardinals and the Niners. Niners laying 1.5 at home, 44 in the hook, the total. Brock Purdy out, as we know. Mac Jones taking over here. Juwan Jennings also questionable, which can hurt this offense. He went 5 for 89 and a tutty last week. Larry, let's send it to you first. You're on the Niners money line.
Yeah, I don't think that the Carolina Panthers comeback was an accident. They lost their top 3 corners. Arizona did during that game. Garrett Williams, Max Melton, Will Johnson, all were lost, and they were already missing 2 corners. So that you were down to your 6th and 7th and 8th corners on the field at the end of that game. And it doesn't look like any of those top 3 will be back for this week. That's the early indication. They also lost another defensive lineman. So the Cardinals are very fortunate to be 2-0. And I like what I saw from Mac Jones. 3 touchdowns. I do think Jennings is going to play. This is the home opener for the 49ers and that Robert Saleh defense. So I'm going to take the 49ers and just play him on the money line.
My guy Mac Jones, though, does have 7 straight losses following a win, but trends are not predictive, right, RJ?
Yeah, the 49ers are my play here as well. I don't mind laying the 1.5. Arizona's defense fell apart late, like Larry's talking about. And I don't have any confidence in the cornerbacks coming back for this game. And that should be easy for Kyle Shanahan to pick apart. A lot of people were excited about seeing Mac Jones in the Kyle Shanahan offense. And the early returns look pretty good. So I've got to believe that he's going to be able to keep it going in this type of matchup. I am worried about Kyler Murray, especially in an early season game against the 49ers. Could possibly be good too. So I don't want to go too heavily on the 49ers here. But even with their offensive injuries, the passing offense looked great on the road versus New Orleans. I think they have the advantage, and I think the defense gets back to looking pretty good in this matchup, especially after they looked good against the Seahawks in week 1.
And speaking of defense, the Cardinals' defense has actually looked good at stopping the run, but they also haven't faced Christian McCaffrey yet, so that should be interesting. Well, I know you said no strong feeling here, but you're with us leaning on the Niners.
Yeah, I might like the Niners more than I did like earlier this morning when I put it in. I mean, again, like not like
Are we convincing you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a little bit. I also just think the Mac Jones. I mean, with Kyle Shanahan's offense against a completely battered secondary that let Bryce Young and Hunter Renfrow light them up for 2 touchdowns and a bunch of yardage in the 4th quarter last week. I mean, Mac Jones, he might not be Brock Purdy, but he's kind of maybe the same thing. I mean, Kyle Shanahan wants to prove he can get the most out of Mac Jones. Maybe he flips him in a trade in the offseason. Who knows? They want to win games while Purdy's out, and this is a good spot for him. The home opener is a huge factor, and I think maybe there's not a bigger drop off with the San Francisco offense as we think, particularly against this bad secondary.
49ers across the board. You know what that means. All right, we've got Sunday night, Monday Night Football coming up right after this. Sunday night football here on the early edge. Chiefs laying 5.5 at the Giants, 45.5 the total. Up to 6.5. We're seeing some of that, good teaser spot for the Chiefs if you don't want to lay this number because they haven't looked very convincing. Larry, with that said, you like them to get off to a hot start and cover the first quarter.
Yeah, they're 0-2 for the first time since 2014. Patrick Mahomes has never started 0-2, and Travis Kelce is taking the responsibility for the drop that turned the whole game around. They had a chance to take a 17-13 lead over the Eagles, and the play goes the other way for a big interception. So I'm going to trust Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes to come out with a nice script and jump on this Giants team, which has been terrible at home. And last year, their average result at home was a loss by more than 11 points. I do think I don't want to lay this big of a number for a full game, especially after what we saw from the Giants offense in Dallas. But I do trust Mahomes and Reid to get off to a good start.
Will, like you said earlier, Russ tore up that Dallas secondary. You have a lean on the under full game here, though.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see vintage 2015 Russell Wilson against this Chiefs defense. It's been pretty good. I mean, maybe a little bit hard to know, but, because Herbert looked great against him in week 1. And then we just don't, the Eagles just don't throw the ball, apparently. I think the Giants will struggle to score here a lot more than they did last week. No bleep Sherlock. But I think the Chiefs are going to want to win. I don't think they're going to come in and just go Star Wars on us against this Giants defense. I think they'll try to run the football a bunch, come out. I do like that early first quarter pick that Larry mentioned, just because I think they start hot after going to 0-2. I just don't think we see a ton of points. I think we see, particularly the Chiefs, if they get a lead, melt the clock. Andy Reid's second half unders are always fantastic looks. Would probably lean towards the Giants a little bit, but just because this line has gotten out of control.
And the Giants defense too, top 5 in pressure rate right now. I know we'd like a 7 a lot more than a 6.5, RJ, but you're going to take the 6.5.
Yeah, I'm fine with the 6.5. I get that the Chiefs are desperate, 0-2 start, the unfamiliar territory. This does not look like the Chiefs. And we're used, even when they weren't playing very well offensively, they were still a top 15 team in scoring. They don't have playmakers right now with Rashee Rice out, Xavier Worthy still managing his injury. Offense has to run through Marquise Brown, run through Travis Kelce, who is definitely not the same Travis Kelce of even a year ago early in the season. I think his play has fallen off. So what do they do? How are they going to score points in this game? I get that the Giants defense has not played well, but I think that they have the pieces to perform well, and they're not going to have to face George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb and players like that in this matchup, or even going back to that Washington matchup where they had to face Deebo Samuel, Terry McLaurin coming into after a short preseason with his contract situation. So I think this is a better matchup for that defense. For those worried about the Giants offense going back into a hole after Kansas City's defense showed up last week, I do like the Chiefs team total under. I do think Larry is right on that first quarter spread of playing the Chiefs. They should be able to get out to a lead just through good planning and being able to outcoach the Giants. But I don't see them extending that lead, and I think it's going to be a pretty close game. So plus 6.5, another ugly dog. Mark it down on the slate that we're taking all these ugly dogs, and this is going to be another one for me.
It's a long list. Let's see what you think, RJ. I'll swing it back to you with this Lions-Ravens game on Monday Night Football. Ravens currently laying 4.5. Is that what we have now? Okay, up to 5 now. Battle of the two best rosters, regardless, I think, of what you think the Lions have done. Ravens obviously trucking through their opponents. Highest total on the board, up from 49.5 up to 52.5. What's your approach to this one, RJ?
Yeah, I wish I would have taken +6 with the Lions. My ratings make it 6, and so I didn't rush out to play it. I wanted to think about the game some more, and then the market hammered Detroit, and it's come down to 5, 4.5, and might continue to get lower. That Detroit offense still showed it has firepower, and we know the Baltimore defense loves to melt down. They'll have a late meltdown, so I think Detroit might be able to pull off one of those, get a backdoor cover in this game. Baltimore's offense, interestingly stuffed on the ground last week, could not do anything in the run game against the Browns. I wonder if the Lions are able to take advantage of that and make Lamar turn this into a shootout, which he's certainly capable of. We know that he's been one of the best quarterbacks in the league the last few years, but I think the line's going to drop some more. If you haven't played the Lions, you should probably play it at the +5. I'm probably going to stay away at this point.
And it was really what we saw in the trenches for the Lions in week 1, which was the big worry because they're supposed to be one of the best defensive fronts, supposed to have one of the best offensive lines. And Jared Goff was sacked how many times? Luckily, though, 0 sacks last week. D-line had 4 sacks, so looked much much better there. Let's send it over to you, Will, because you're with RJ here on the Lions catching the points.
Yeah, I mean, I just think the Lions, I think week one skewed our perception of the Lions a lot. And even though they blew out the Bears, it still carried over a little bit into this matchup. The Ravens, they blew out the Browns, but I mean, that game was a lot closer going into the fourth quarter than credit for. And I think if it's remotely close against Detroit, and that total is huge, right? So I don't think we get the 2023 38-3 beatdown that the Ravens put on the Lions in week 7 at home. I don't think that's on the table with the way that the Lions came out with their offense. I think they're willing to spread it around, pass the ball a lot. Amon-Ra St. Brown, incredible game last week. I'll take the Lions catching the 5. I just think it's too many points for a team that was a little written off before the season, but showed last week that they are very much still a contender.
And again, we go back to their roster. We know that the talent is there. Maybe it just took a week for them to warm up. Larry, I know you're on the over. We got to talk about what this Ravens offense did. I know that game was close against the Browns. I especially know because I talked about the Browns covering that game. Fourth quarter totally screwed me. But the Ravens have put up 81 points against two tough defenses in the Browns and the Bills. You like the full game over here?
Yeah, I think they're going to be an over team all year, or at least until that defense becomes what we think it can be. And they score so fast. Even after the Browns did hold them down, they just can be so electric with so many different weapons, plus Lamar and Derrick Henry didn't do anything, and they scored 41 points. And the Lions defense, to me, is about average. And the Lions have so many offensive playmakers. I think this is going to be one of those classic games, maybe not in that Rams Monday night game that we still think about where the game went into the 50s. But I think this is, 35-31, that type of a game.
And of course, we have Detroit on the road outdoors in prime time. It's nice weather, though. That shouldn't affect them. And then Lamar on the other side, 7-2 on Monday Night Football. We did it, guys. We ran through the whole week 3 slate. That was lots of fun. Now it's time to get into best bets. Before we do week 3, let's look back on week 2. RJ, 1-1 overall, 0-1 last week. Larry, 0-1, 0-2 overall. Larry needs a win this week. Will and I both 1-1 overall with a win last week. How are we feeling, guys? Good about this? Larry, you ready to get a win this week?
And I'm going to Mac Jones, of all people, to get me to break out of this. This is embarrassing. I mean, it was Austin Eckler was my play for last week. That was an extremely frustrating bet. Everything was going right. The game script, he was out there. They were throwing the ball. It didn't happen. But today, this is the one I'm going to get back on track with Mac Jones and the 49ers, just because of how banged up that Arizona secondary is. The 49ers home opener, Robert Saleh's defense is going to show up and get us our first best bet win.
All right. I have faith in you, Larry, back in that Niners money line. RJ, you're taking the points with the Saints as your best bet.
Yeah, I have this game at 4.5 for Seattle. New Orleans has been competitive against two teams I think are playoff caliber, two teams that were certainly rated better than the Seahawks coming into the season by the market. I don't see why the Saints can't be competitive in this game as well. And Seattle has a lot to prove to me offensively, especially. So I think this game's going to be a closer game, 3-4 point game. Love getting over the 7 here. That's why 7.5 is the best bet for me.
All right. And Will, you're taking the Rams with a 3.5.
Yeah, I mean, we know where this is going. If you're giving me 3.5 with the Rams, and as good as their defense is played, as well as Matthew Stafford is playing against an Eagles team that seems content to just run the football a bunch and not try to light up the scoreboard, I think it's a close game. Maybe Philly comes away with a field goal win, but I like the Rams to cover here and maybe pull off the upset in Philadelphia. A little revenge for the playoff loss.
Are you, did I miss something? Are you a Rams fan or this just?
I'm a Matthew Stafford fan and by extension a Rams fan, yes.
Gotcha. All right, cool. I'm going to go with the Bills team total over 30 and the hook. This just feels low. I get it. Maybe they get out to a big lead. They don't have to score 31 points, but I think they will. They just put up 20 on the Jets in the first half on the road. Now they're at home. I think they'll get a quick start. And this Dolphins defense doesn't scare me. Don't think it's going to scare Josh Allen. RJ, do we have a week 4 look ahead before we head out of here?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Eagles minus 2.5. They're at the Bucs. It's a risky play with the Eagles on upset watch against the Rams, like Will's talking about. So maybe we do get a lower number. I think the line should be Eagles minus 4 against a beat up Bucs team that isn't going to be significantly healthier next week. I'm happy to lay under a field goal. And if it's bad value by the time we get to Monday, then oh well. I just want to make sure that we're able to get under 3 here.
Oh, well, we gave you all of week 3 and a look ahead to week 4 for RJ, Will, Larry. I'm Claudia. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys, here on the Early Edge.